Hello, I'm Robin Milton and I'm the founder of Fairer Games.
Hi, I'm Dwyn Good and I'm the creative director of Fairer Games.
And our company motto is never apologise for enthusiasm. So Brewess is a narrative adventure game where your wits must be as bold as your ale.
You play a 1500s alewife who has to brew various ales for her community, balance the power within her city, and expand her brewing empire. The story of the alewife is kind of the backbone to that time in history because we didn't drink water. Everybody drank ale because it was safer than the contaminated water supply. Ale would go off really quickly, so there was a constant need for it. And obviously you had like great big organizations, who would brew. They would have massive grain roasting ovens and huge kind of endeavors, but the vast majority was also propped up by just normally women just brewing in their houses because it was needed. How else would you hydrate?
This is an example of what the dialogue experience is going to look like in the game.
And the setting is, of course, in the alewife's front room, basically, which is where they would sell beer. They'd put the stick broomstick outside to let people know that there was ale ready. And then people would just come into your house and buy some ale off of you. And maybe you'd have somewhere for them to sit or maybe not.
Both Dwyn and I are obsessed with role-playing games, more specifically obsessed with games where we get to know the characters that are in those games.
So this is Oriana, who is one of the NPCs that you meet in the game. And she's a very dry, reserved kind of character that you have to really work at getting to know. She's a midwife, kind of a local clever woman. And so, yeah, as you can see, she's a bit standoffish at the beginning, and maybe players not so impressed with your efforts for a while. Woodcut is an age-old process. It's all basically line work created by carving into a block of wood and then covering that block of wood in ink or paint and printing onto something else. And it's also quite iconic. It's quite hard to do people's faces in woodblock printing without making them look about 100 years old because of all the lines.
We want to bring the interesting history of this time period, which is the mid-1500s. A lot is going on. I won't bore you with it now, but the more we've researched it, the more we've been like, what? That was happening as well? It was all go, but also doing it in a way that's looking at ordinary people and specifically ordinary women, which are very much lost from historical texts. My very good friend Caitlin, she knew that I'd been doing a lot of reading for it. And she was like, how can I add to this? So she, bless her, put together a PowerPoint presentation for me and Dwyn to work off of, just with like really simplified, like, this is what a normal woman would wear. So we begin with the linen shift, the most multi-purpose item, and then the decision of what you might have on your legs and shoes, which, as you can imagine, trying to find accurate depictions of 16th century shoes is quite rare. And then kirtle is a design of gown. And then how you might have your sleeves, because that styling is also how people would express themselves. A parlet, and then aprons, which are obviously a big part of being an alewife. Gowns, hairstyles, tucking. So if you're going to be moving around lace and it's very muddy, so you can see how much detail she went into. Dwyn and I have been lucky enough to work with a local graphic designer and historian, Darren Leader. And Darren has been doing some fantastic research into merchant marks, which are kind of like the very first trademark.
So that is the Guild of Mercers. So that's the Guild of Merchants. Do you know what I mean?
I love that.
Yeah. And that's the Mercers Maid.
This is an example of the stuff that he's been researching. So these are both merchant marks that were active in Norwich.
This is the wife and this is the husband. I love it.
Oh, there we go.
So prior to the general population being literate, symbolism and imagery was really important. It would allow people to be able to recognize someone's work.
This is various weavers and dyers of Norfolk.
The main character of our game would ideally have one of these marks herself. It would be used as a way to show her ales.
What I'll do first, though, is do some research.
I just love the idea of being able to bring to life the everyday experiences of these women that were doing things that are ordinary. Brewing at that time was very ordinary, it was very domestic, but the significance of it, and also the women that were pushing it that bit further and trying to earn some money and trying to gain some independence at a time where literally everyone would be against you at that point. I feel like it's a story that can ring true to people today. And so whilst we want to make sure that we get the story right and the history right, and we want it to feel authentic and real, we also want to make sure that it's fun and it's a nice place to be. I want the game to feel like a sort of a hug